Stitch One Voice, and we are meeting tonight to talk about our preparations for the People's March on January 18th, and that is in Washington, D.C., and then there will be sister marches as well. And we want to be prepared to have as many people wearing patriotic hats as possible. And we have some interesting things to talk about tonight. We're going to talk about a little bit of their analytics and things that we're seeing, some trends that we're seeing on our YouTube channel. And then we're going to talk about what those trends are and the impact they're having. And we're going to make another little kind of introduction into, it's not even an introduction, it's a review of how the original hat was made. So, so my name is Joy McDonnell. We have Kesley Anderson with us as well. And we'll go ahead and get started. And what Kesley and I are noticing as we're looking at our YouTube channel is we're seeing that there is a trend of watching the original Pussy Hat video that that I created in 2017. That video has, since the election, has had kind of an interesting spike that was not happening prior to the election. And we feel like it's happening because there's a kind of a resurgence of the photography that happened during the 2017 March with the women wearing the pink pussy hats. And we can also go ahead, Kez.
I was just gonna say, don't you also find that in other areas that we're looking um we're looking at that that I'm sorry, I was gonna try to add me onto there, but I don't see a way to do that. But don't you think that like we are finding I'm seeing people just that anger is returning and the
Mhm.
anger at the speed that Trump is working in is just it's making everybody angry and these the people that are being nominated to positions, it's just amping up that rage and that anger, which is such a turn from how we were feeling prior to the election with so much hope and optimism and joy, and now it's just like, oh,
Right.
more
There's a
pain.
lot of that resistance feeling coming back.
Mhm.
And as that happens, there's a lot of reference to history. And that means that we go back to what 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 happened in 2017 prior to um, President Trump's inauguration and how this particular march is positioned again in the same, like right before the inauguration. It's 2 days beforehand, and it's our opportunity, really, the same way as we had, oh gosh, I don't even want to do the math, 2017 to
Mhm.
now. Um, just that we have this opportunity to march and have our moment to say how we feel about what's happening. So we're seeing a resurgence of photography from that 2017 March, where we see all the women wearing, men and women wearing the pink hat. And
Let me share that image if you don't mind. Is that okay?
yeah, yeah. And we're also noticing there's a lot of interesting kind of history too here, as Kesley's pulling that up. We in 2017, yeah, perfect. So this is a recent article that Time did, right?
Yes. Yeah.
And interesting enough, that pink pussy hat was on the front cover of Time magazine. And so there's a lot of photography of that time and what was happening. And there were a lot of reasons why pink was selected when Krista Saw and Janus Wyman created that pattern. It was, and Kat Jennings, she also, I think she's the author of the pattern. Um, they did it in that shape, the specific shape that we're talking about. And I actually have my hat. This is the actual hat that I wore during the 2017 March. And I emphasized the cat ears on my hat by sewing those in a little bit more. But at that time, the reason we were making this hat was in reaction to the comments about women and how you could grab them by the pussy. And that led to a pussy hat with cat ears. And it's become a very big symbol of protest against or a protest symbol for women's rights. And as you know, as we've looked at coming back to where we were this summer, and Kesley and I were thinking about the march that was going to happen on November 2nd in support of Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, we felt like bringing the pink back, only it was going to be like salt in the wounds. And we had so many hopeful things that we really wanted to say, let's reclaim our patriotism. Let's take that power back. Let's take back our red, white, and blue, because we are Americans and we are here and we own this too. So that was kind of where we were coming from. But as we're seeing more and more preparation for the march that's coming up, and these pictures and everything are coming along, there's a lot of connection back to that pussy hat. And the reason I'm noticing the trends on my site is because I had made the original video that helped people learn how to knit the pussy hat. And that video is connected with the pussyhatproject.com. And I'm seeing that website is driving a lot of traffic over. And Kez and I had a really good conversation, one of our little sisterly heart-to-heart conversations, where we talk about, you know, why we are sitting in the position of red, white, and blue.
Before you go on, can I just add a little bit to what you were talking about? And why also we made this shift from the pink hat to the patriotic hat. The pink hat is definitely problematic, right? Not everybody at the march has a pussy, not every pussy's pink, you know, all those reasons. So in 2017, there was even some pushback on the pink hat, and what it represented was a solid protest against Trump, but where it wasn't inclusive, it didn't include everybody. And this march in 2025 will be called the People's March. And there are so many different organizations that are really bringing everybody together. Now, all the organizations don't agree on everything, but the underlying purpose is to represent and be a voice for everything that is at stake over the next 4 years. Our LGBTQ plus friends and families, our trans rights, you know, immigrants, everything that is under that umbrella that is a threat. And so again, I think that the moving towards the red, white, and blue, because it is the symbol of America and we are all Americans, it fits that bill of the People's March to really expand that umbrella and reach out to everybody instead of just one singular group. But we have some ideas on how you can be unique if you want to take your hat to represent really what is at the heart of your issue and why you are choosing to march and be part of the resistance. So I just wanted to pop that in there.
Yes. And I think as one of the things that that as we spoke, there are different colors that we can use for all the different things. And you and I have made hats that that represent all kinds of different things. So as we're knitting and as we're creating, one of the, and this was our heart-to-heart conversation that we had, was the red, white, and blue we felt was still very powerful because it helps take some of the power away from the right side, the Republican side. So by the MAGA side, which is a word I try not. I feel like that's like a Voldemort. I'm saying,
is it like a dirty word to you?
like something's gonna happen. Yeah, but it's saying, no, we are Americans too. We wear red, white, and blue, and we care about this country. So it takes the power away from one group usurping the colors of the United States of America. And it makes it so that we all remind ourselves that we need to come back to unite and to be one country and to be here for everybody in all the different ways that we show up. So, yeah, so we have been noticing what's coming up and what we're seeing, and we felt like it was important to talk a little bit about that original hat, the construction of that hat. We both have ours,
I know.
and it's so funny because was that the hat you wore at the March, Kez, or is that one of the
No,
ones you
I
had?
had this is one I made after the march because look at my clip in my hair. I had my hat just like what happened in November is somebody was like, I don't have a hat, and I was like, take mine. And I
Yes.
gave them a hat because I knew I could make another one. So I did remake a hat, but I do have, because I know we're just going to kind of go over like a basic hat, the original
Yep.
knit pattern of the hat, but I also wanted to show, you know, um, that you can do your hat in all different kinds of ways. And
Oh,
like
I have
this
one too.
rat hat I'm working on, and I have like a canvas hat that just has the red on the bottom and the white on the top, and then you could swift it up, be the
Yes.
front. And I think like I really hope to see that the hats sort of become like the friendship bracelets, that people want to share hats or exchange hats. Maybe you have a one hat and you want a different hat and you can change it, and or
I love
add
that
a button,
idea.
right? You could bring buttons to give to people, or anything like that. So it could be very Swifty-esque.
Yes. Yes. And yeah, so yeah, and Kesley, I think I dug deep into my knitting to find my hat, but we've talked about how you can sew your ears to be a little bit more pronounced, and I had done that way back then. But like Kesley's saying, you can make a pride hat, and you can take the pattern, this basic pattern, and just, count how many stitches you're going to have. This one I did, I just kept going even in the colors, but I did some pearls and some knit stitches. That is that hat that you're wearing there, Kesley, that we did for the Women's March in their colors. And that's using the patriotic hat pattern. What's cool
Mhm.
about that is you're just using the same patriotic hat pattern. So if you wanted to do that, that's fine. The transgender one that you had earlier, the pink and the blue one, that's made after the flag. And the way that that flag is, it's equal parts of blue, pink, white, pink, blue, and that's for transitions and changes. It's always hard to get those hats on right.
Well, I just had a clip on my hair too, so it's
Yeah.
killing me.
So really, I mean, and Kesley, what you just said about friendship bracelets, I think that's so cool because there's so many different reasons to be at the march. We just want
Mhm.
everyone to be able to participate and to be part of it and teach everybody how to make hats in different ways. The key thing though, that I keep coming back to is the shape of the hat. And if we look at what I have right here and what we're going to talk about today, this one is that key shape. The shape is really all about the squared off top, and how when that sits on your head, it forms the points, the cat ears, and that's what is declaring the protest. And I think at the end of the day, that becomes, as we talk about unifying, that becomes that unifying element where you can say, all right, yours is in pride stripes, or yours is pink, or yours is red, white, and blue. It doesn't matter. What matters is that shape and how that hat sits on your head and what it says, because it's not the same hat that you would wear to, a football game, or that the kids would put on. This is a hat that you're purposely making, and it also ties back to the handmade piece and all the importance of the handmade part of that.
Yeah, AI can't knit yet.
What?
AI can't knit yet. Artificial
Oh,
intelligence can't knit yet. So we're safe
yeah.
with our hand knitting. We sort of
Yeah, exactly.
so why don't you take us through sort of the foundation of the hat and what we need to do, and then show us and then we're just going to break it down in the different steps.
Yes, so
So
this is the construction of the original pussy hat. We, as Kesley and I came around in 2025 or this year, sorry, I work
it's
in
okay.
manufacturing, so I'm already like 2 years ahead. But in this year, I don't even know where I was going with that. Okay, so if we go back to that original, oh, I know what it was. In this year, we introduced knitting and crocheting in the round. The original hat was made flat. So this is a bulky yarn, a bulky weight yarn that I had that was just striped with red and white. I thought it was super cute to make during Christmas time because it's got sort of that little candy look to it. Uh, but essentially what you're doing is you're knitting in stockinette stitch. Well, you're doing your rib stitch, your knit two, purl two for about 4¼ inches. And then you're doing your stockinette stitch to get a measurement from the cast on edge to the end of your stockinette to be about 13 inches. And then you're repeating the 4¼ inches of your rib stitch again. And then you're
Oh,
taking that
what's the overall length that your piece is? Because
at
you can
mine
adjust,
is.
well, you can adjust your ribs, like your rib could be 2 inches or 3 inches, or you could do the whole thing in the rib stitch. But ultimately, how long is that piece?
So mine is about,
It should be about 20 inches.
well, mine worked out to about 18 because here's why mine worked out to about 18. When I had followed that original pattern, it was always too big, which is why I ended up sewing those ears in. So I do
Mhm.
make mine a little bit shorter
Okay.
because I think it fits better on my head. But again, we all have different
So you
sizes.
want your finished project, your finished knit piece to be between 18 to 20 inches?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you basically did a measurement from the brim across your head to like the back where you would want your hat to sit, and then give yourself about an inch of positive ease, you're right around whatever your measurement would be. Because you definitely want your hat to fit you.
Right. Okay.
So,
Good.
but
Okay.
but yes, Kaz, that's
So
fine.
start off between 18 and 20 inches and then modify from there.
Exactly. Exactly.
Okay. And
So,
about how
so
wide is it?
yeah, so I would talk about a couple of things on the construction of this. So you start with your ribbed edge, which I have right here. This is where I cast on, and I did put markers on mine when I started to switch to the stockinette stitch. And I did that because of this variegated look. It was kind of hard to see my stitches. So I had it marked in both edges so that I could see where I'm going to sew that together. Because essentially what you're doing is you're creating one big rectangle. And again, it's based on the size of your head. So it's got the half of the diameter, I guess would be your radius,
Okay.
technically. So if you took the it's the diameter of the circumference of your head.
So mine usually end up between 9 and 10 inches wide.
9 and 10 inches wide.
Yeah, because then when you double it up, it's about 20 inches,
Yeah,
18 to 20 inches.
that would be right. Did I put up a thumb symbol somehow?
I don't know.
Um, right. So for this bulky knit, I cast on I think 30 stitches. And I did this one's going to be a little bit bigger. Um, I needed this for somebody wants this who's a gentleman and has a little bit bigger head than mine. So I did about 30 stitches on this one. And you do your cast on, then your stockinette stitch, then your ribbing again, and then you're going to fold it in half and then just sew up the edges. And that's what creates your hat. So Kesley, if we wanted to, we have some samples where we can talk about how to
Right.
cast on
I'll
and
just put
how
your
to cast.
overhead. I'll just put your overhead on, Joy, so you can talk about casting up.
Yeah.
Casting
And
on.
I'm gonna show a little bit different cast on. And this one, if people sometimes people get a little bit confused with the long tail cast on. So if you are looking for a little bit easier cast on, I think this is the easiest of all. This is the one my grandmother taught me. So you start with a slip stitch. So you're just putting one end of your yarn over the other and pinching through and pulling up your slip stitch. And then that goes on your needle. And then your first stitch, you don't have to have any extra left over or count or measure any amount. You're just going to go in and do your first knit stitch. And then you take this stitch and turn it a little bit and put it right back onto your needle. Now you could continue to put your stitch on that way. I think that the bottom edge ends up a little bit tight when you do that. And so since this is a hat, we're gonna do a cable cast on. So basically you're going in between your first stitch and your second stitch. You're putting your needle right in through there. And then you'll do a knit and you'll take that and put it up onto your cast on needle. And you'll continue doing that until you have the right amount of stitches for your hat. And this is a pretty quick cast on that gives a pretty edge, I think, to your hat. And once I get a few of these on, I'll show you what that edge looks
Actually,
like.
Joy, would you mind moving your hats off to the left, that bottom corner left? Would you move those hats? And would you mind taking it out and starting it one more time? I just want to see it one more time, how you started.
Oh, yeah. So, okay. So we're going to have our slip stitch. So you're just taking your one side over the other and then pinching in and pulling up that loop. And
Crisscross
then
applesauce.
what?
Crisscross applesauce.
Yeah, kind of. I like that. Yeah. And then that's on your needle. And then you're going to basically just knit a stitch and take it and put it onto your left needle.
So
Take
you
it from
go underneath, you go underneath from the back to put on your needle.
yes. So you're knitting and you've got the one stitch on the right side and one on the left, and you want to take your right side and put it over to your left. So you're
Okay.
going to take this one and yeah, you do sort of twist it to get it on to the, because if I just took it and went like this,
Yeah.
when I come to knit, that's going to be positioned on my needle backwards.
Oh, okay. Good explanation.
Yeah, so you want to get it so that it's positioned correctly on your needle. So you're going to do that knit, and then you're when you're moving it over to the left side, you're kind of just coming through that front loop and putting it on.
Great.
And then from there, you are going in between the first two stitches. So I'm putting my needle in between. So it's just right underneath there. It just goes right in between and knitting. And then doing that same thing, using that front loop to put the stitch onto the left needle. And then you'll just keep going until you have all your stitches on that you need for your hat.
And does
And
this
like I said,
cast
I did about 30 stitches.
does this cast on have a name?
This is a cable cast on.
Cable casting, okay.
Yes. And the reason I like it, it gives a little bit of extra stretch. And then I think it also gives a nice edge down here. It
Mhm.
looks pretty when you're working on your project. From either side, it looks good, I think. So that's a good cast on. It's called the cable cast on. And you can zip that on pretty quickly. And it's not quite as complicated as the long tail cast on. The long tail cast on for hats is my preference because I think it's a little stretchier and it can match my cast off a little easier, but this is a good cast on. Okay, so you would cast on your stitches just like that. And I have an example already ready for us, a little swatch of what you would do next. So this is just a little piece instead of being the whole big piece, just so that we can show that a little faster. So we're going to knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, knit 2, purl 2, all the way across until we have about 4¼ inches. So when we're doing that, you're just looking at your stitches to see what direction you're working in. So this is a purl. So I'm going to go ahead and purl. And these needles are a little bit longer, so they're a little trickier to use under this camera. And then I would knit and purl. And that gives you a rib stitch. A rib stitch has some elasticity to it. It's nice to have around the band of your hat because it helps to hold the hat onto your head. And you could technically do your whole hat in a rib stitch, which a lot of people do, and it looks really cool. But the way that this hat is done is using a stockinette stitch. Okay, so you would put in about 4¼ inches of ribbing, knit 2, purl 2, and then you would start your stockinette stitch. And Kesley, you have that part to show, right?
I do. I'm ready to share that. So let me switch over
Alright.
to my other camera. Okay, so here we are over here. So what I've done is, and I've done my ribbing just a little bit different from Joy's. I think I did do the long tail cast on, but I did my ribbing where I did 3 knits to start and then 3 purls to end on each stitch. So I'll do 3 and then I'll do my 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, 2, and then my last one is 3 purls. And that way when they come together, it's two stitches, and that gives me my edge to knit together. Now one of the things,
That is how the original pattern is written.
yes. And then the other thing I'll point out is that I always get confused when they ask, like, okay, so you're starting your stockinette stitch on the right side. And I always think, well, which is the right side? So I don't think it really matters so much on the ribbing side, because it looks the same both ways. You know, your ribbing looks the same. So I always think of my tail on my right side, my right hand, being the right side of my project. So when I know if my tail's on my right side, I'm doing my knit stitch. And if my tail's on my left side, I'll be doing my stockinette stitch. So that's just sort of how I keep it in my mind, how I do it. So when you're ready to start the stockinette stitch, and Joy, I love the idea of putting little markers on the edge so you know where, how,
Yes.
like when you start to fold over, so you get the same length on both sides. That's a really good tip.
Yes,
So
and that yarn I was using, if it has any decoration to it, it's helpful.
definitely. Yeah, absolutely. So I've made,
Oops, I think Kesley just froze on us. There she is.
oops, I use my little tape measure here, and I'm at 4 inches exactly. So I'm gonna wrap it off there. Now I may decide to make my stockinette stitch a little bit longer so that I can end up folding up the brim of my hat if I want to, or, you know, like we talked about in other hats I've done my ribbing stitch much shorter than my stockinette stitch. So, you know, I think that's totally a personal preference, whatever you feel moved. So what we'll do first is we'll come across, and the first thing you're going to do to start your stockinette stitch is you just do a knit stitch all the way across your piece. So we're just going to go moving through and doing our knit stitch. So I'm going in, wrapping and pulling out and pushing through. So we're going in from the front, coming out the back, wrapping around, bring out my needle, and then offing it. My son did a knitting video and he'd say, stick it, wrap it, off it. That was how he would say. So I think for people who are learning how to knit, I think that is a really, I mean, when he was like 5 years old, I think when he did that. And so you just, you take, and I'm a right-handed knitter also, so keep that in mind, but I'm trying to get better with my left hand. So you stick it in and it goes behind the left stick. You wrap it, and I don't know if it makes a difference which way you wrap it, but I always go, okay, yeah. I always go bottom and over. So stick it, wrap it, off it. So you come down, stick it back up, and take that loop off your left-handed needle. Stick it, wrap it, off it. So I don't know why, Joy, I always in my mind, sometimes when I'm starting a new row, I'll be like, okay, stick it, wrap it, off it.
That's so cute. I love it.
Isn't that great? So, I mean, you could just do a little stick it, wrap it, off it.
Yeah, that's super helpful.
Very easy. And one of the things Joy and I are hoping is that we can teach enough people to knit or crochet their own hat. So I know some of you who are working on the One Stitch One Voice project might get overwhelmed by requests. So always feel free to direct people to Joy's YouTube channel where she has shorts. She'll convert a lot of this information up into shorts and a shorter video of just teaching somebody who's getting started and they need to do that knit stitch all the way across, how to stick it, wrap it, off it. If you're working with somebody and helping them learn how to knit, like let's say they're in your home, what I used to do with my son, again, he was 5, and he made a scarf. And what we did was he would do work on it when he, throughout the day, he'd work on little bits of it. And then at night, I would kind of go back and fix it a little bit, not very much, but just if he really, had a big gap of lost stitches, I would go back in and carry up his stitches and stuff. And then I was teaching my husband how to make a hat, and I had him do the knit rows, and then he'd hand it to me, and I would do the purl rows. And we would sit. Isn't that cute? So we would sit next to each other. And because he understood the knit part of it, but the purl part, he wasn't there yet. So I wanted him to feel success. And so that's what I did. So, yeah, so if you have somebody in your house that you're teaching how to make hats, that is a great, easy way to do it. Okay. So I got to my last knit, and now all of my stitches are on my right needle. So I'm just going to turn my needle. I'll turn it like a page in the book. So I'll take it from the right side, and I'm just going to turn it like a page of a book. And I'm going to go across my project in the purl stitch. So purl stitch is the same thing. We're going to stick it, instead of sticking it from the left to the back, we're going to stick it right to the front. And my yarn is on the front of my project. So you can even move your whole ball of yarn if you need to the front of your project. If you're teaching somebody, that's a great way to just keep the yarn in front. So same process, wrap it, stick it, and then off it. So we'll stick it into the front. We'll wrap our yarn around it. We'll stick it and then off it. Oh, sorry. Stick it, wrap it, off it. I added a stick it in there.
I love it.
But so then I will just run this across the entire row. And eventually I'll just keep adding rows to it. And you'll see as you add your rows, it will get longer and longer. So I have this variegated yarn here. Let me grab it and show you. This is the Super Saver Stripes. It's Coats and Clark, and the color on it is Americana. Haha, how fitting. And you can just see how you're gonna just start building up. Now I did my ribbing is a bit longer on this one because I was trying to get to the blue before I started my stockinette stitch. So that's how I did this one. But as you can see, I'm in the middle of starting my row, but you just keep working your way up until you get it as long as you want it to be. I will probably make it 18 inches or 20 inches from the fold of the cuff, and anticipate that this one will be folded.
I like
Like the
that.
top to be folded. Doesn't that look really cute?
That's super cute. Yeah.
And what I'm gonna do, Joy, to make sure that I have the red ribbing at the bottom, is I'm just only gonna use the blue sections of, as you can see, I'm almost there.
Yep.
But I'll just use the blue sections on the top, the stockinette part of it, and do my ribs in the red and white. And I am, don't kill me, but I will just cut and tie my ends when I bring them in.
You can also end your row and
Yeah.
leave, and then when you sew it up, you can just tie it off there. And
Yeah.
that would be fine.
Yeah, absolutely. So
I mean,
that's
I think given the hats that we're making here, we're not doing all of our fancy things that would last generations. Although these hats have lasted a long time, so
oh, right, because I still have mine from 2017. So
exactly.
I've had, or yeah, 2017, yeah.
Yeah.
All right,
Okay.
so now you're ready to show us how to finish it off, right?
That's right. So I have my little guy here who's ready to be sewn up the edge. And I'm going to turn this inside out, using the wrong sides or the right sides together. And oh, the easiest, if you're looking in your stitching, you'll see that your stitches have a little bar that go in between. So can you see that, Kez?
Oh, well, let me switch over to your
Overhead.
right camera.
I
I'm
just see
sorry.
the side of my head.
Yep, I wasn't even, hold
We're over
on,
there
sorry.
knitting.
I wasn't there yet.
That's totally fine.
Okay, there you are.
All right. So if you're looking at our edges, you'll see that there's a little bar in between each of your stitches. And that's what you're going to use to sew up as you're going. So you kind of want to push things out of your way and really find those edges. And we're going to do that on either side. And I'm just using my cast on. When I cast off, I do about 2.5 times the length of the side of the hat. And I'm just going to come up here and start at
So Joy, I'm sorry, before you do that,
uh-huh.
can you talk to us about like why would you stitch it up facing on the inside or the outside? How, like, did you talk about that and I missed it?
Well, I said that I had put my right sides together. So I
Okay.
want this seam to be on the inside of the hat. I don't want this to show when I'm actually wearing it.
Okay.
So that's why I'm doing it this way. And I'm just looking for the beginning stitch, and I'm going to go ahead and put my needle, and I'm using a tapestry needle. I've already got the yarn on the tapestry needle. Oh, my hands are sticky. And I'm just going to look for that next stitch and go down, and then look for that next stitch on the other side and pull that through. And you don't have to be perfect about this or have it be a specific way, because it's really not going to show when you're wearing your hat. But you just kind of want to get it as close to even as possible so that your ribbing matches up as you're going along here. So I'll just, and I'm using those stitch markers where I had put the end of that ribbing so that I know that I'm in about the right spot.
Yeah, so what would you do if your stitches, if your ribbing didn't match up at the end? Like, do you need to worry about that, or how do you fudge that?
I think if you you can just kind of shift it a little bit if you need to. I don't think it's gonna have to be perfect. And
Okay, you can just
nobody's
squish it
gonna,
around.
yeah, just kind of squish it around. Knitting is super forgiving. That's the beautiful
Mhm.
part of being a fiber artist, is that yarn fibers are so forgiving. So just do your best. Do what you think looks right, and that's perfect. There's no there's no fiber police that's going to come and check it. And everybody, trust me, when we gave these hats out, and we did this in 2017, we did it this year. When we give these hats out, people are just so thrilled to have one. They are not looking at how if the ribbing matched up or not. They're just not looking at that. And what was really cool, Kesley, I don't you were kind of you were helping us just make sure that our line was going like not too,
Case.
you were patrolling the line, but there were so many people that as soon as they got the hat, they put it on right away, like, or we
Mhm.
helped them put it on, or we helped them get it on their head straight or whatever. And it was so fun to see people's faces when they put it on, and they were just so excited to have a hat. It was really cool. And in January, it's cold in DC. So having one of these hats, you definitely need it. And a march can be, um, I would imagine if this is like 2017, it was a pretty long march. And you're out there in the cold for a while. So having a hat is a beautiful thing.
And just so people know, they are starting to share more information. Joy, as you're finishing that up, I'll talk about the People's March a bit. They are starting to share information. So there's a website, peoplesmarch.com, where you can register to march, you can register to volunteer, you can reach out to us and let us know if you'd like to volunteer with us in DC on that day or leading up to that. But the rally point will start at 10 a.m. And then move from there. So that's the only information I have so far. That it will start at 10 a.m. I don't know the logistics of where it's going to start. I would imagine it would be at Freedom Plaza again. But I do want to touch on one thing. I did attend the beginning of the People's March um, Zoom call tonight, the hype call, they called it.
Mm.
And one of the things they were talking about is why it's so important that this march have a huge presence in DC and across the country at our sister marches. And that's because the organizers are working with the current rules and guidelines for protest, which is a huge part of democracy, is being able to protest. So we're working with the known rules right now. Those rules could change, and they could change at any moment. Like, I think if you guys think back to the summer with Black Lives Matter protests, and Trump wanted to call out the National Guard and just sweep in and arresting and tear gas all the protesters. And that wasn't allowed because that was against the rules. So the rules can shift and the rules can change. And the People's March is working with a set of known rules. And so it's really important that we really do have a big turnout. I think they're really calling for the importance of a big turnout to this protest because it could be the last opportunity we have. Not to sound dire. I didn't get a dire feeling from that. But it really is interesting when you think about how the administration, when the 45th president had protests that he faced. So we'll see. But I hope everyone can make a march or Sisters March or participate with us and make some hats and toss those in. So Joy, it looks like, did you go to the other side now?
Yeah, I slipped over to the other side while you were chatting. So I'm just coming up on the second side and I wanted to show how to tie it off. And then how to kind of work your ends in, which is pretty easy. So I will stop working on this side.
Well,
Back over.
can I point out one thing
Yeah.
that as you're doing it? So that when you ended your knitting, you had a long tail on the left side and a long tail on the right side. So that you could
I only have the long tail on one side.
Oh, okay. Because like I have a long tail on my right side. So when I get to the end of mine, I'm going to make sure I have a long tail on the other side so that I can stitch down or up.
Yes. Yeah, so it
I
would
just wanted
be
to point that out.
smart. Yeah, it would be smart when you're casting on if you leave yourself more yarn. I didn't do
Okay.
that. But
Yes,
yeah,
whether you're using so it doesn't matter if you're using the long tail cast on or the cable knit cast on, you do want to leave that longer tail to work with.
yes, yes. But I'll show you how to
I mean,
weave
you could
in
always just
again.
use a piece of yarn, right? If you had to.
Yeah, that's what I did.
Okay.
Okay, so I've got these sides all sewn up. And what I do is I just I try to avoid tying knots, which is why Kesley said what she said earlier. And I just go ahead and take that end and you do what's called weaving in, and you're essentially just going down the loops of what's already there, not into the you're staying on the right side of your seam. You don't want to actually go into the part that is your hat. And you'll just weave in your end for a little bit, maybe a couple of stitches, and then you can trim that off. So I've just woven it in a little bit over here, and then I'll just trim that off. And that will hang out on the inside of my hat. No big deal. And then where I started that, and I would do the same exact thing and just weave in that end. So, and there are some people who don't like to weave in their ends. I might be a weirdo, and I just find this to be the easiest part of knitting, and I don't mind doing it at all. I know that there are other people who don't like it, but I like tidying things up after I'm finished. So it's a good feeling for me. So I just weave that in,
I'm
and
complete mayhem.
what's that?
I said I'm complete mayhem.
Yeah.
Don't
Well, that's okay. We're
have
all,
our styles.
yeah,
We're
we all
not
have our little
judging.
ways.
We are
All
not
right.
judging.
No judgment. So that side has both ends woven in. This one I'll need to finish weaving in my ends, but I want to turn this right side around for you so that you can see what it looks like. So when I turn it around, or inside out, right side around, now it has the formation of the actual hat, and that's what gives you those points at the top. And I really do like this yarn. I think it turned out really cute.
It really looks so cute.
Right.
And you do some
And
little
that,
quotes.
yeah, it ended up right there around the top. So when you wear this, it'll kind of have the cutoff right up there. So that's how easy it is to make one of these little hats.
If you were, I'm going to put you back on your main camera now. If you were to estimate, because I know when we estimated our time for the patriotic hats, if you were to estimate the time it took you to make that chunky yarn hat, how long would you say it took you?
I timed myself today because I knew you were
Mm.
going to ask me that question. So it took me about 3 hours.
Okay, so that's
And
half the time.
and that might have been with a few interruptions, from whatever, but from cast on to finish, not doing, I didn't sew up my edges because we just did that. But all the other parts, so it was about 3 hours.
That's great.
Not so
And
bad.
for a beginner, that is a great, I mean, you could do that over an hour over 3 nights. You could do it in one sitting if you've got a snow day or in front of a warm fire, something like that. So that's really doable.
Mhm.
I would say if you're a beginner, it might take you a little bit longer, but if you have a seasoned pro at your side, kind of coaching you along, um, that you could really do that in an evening or a
Yeah.
weekend.
And I think if if we're setting ourselves goals, a hat a week is not unreasonable. And we have, how many weeks do we have left? So we have,
Or
uh,
today's the 19th
yeah,
and the
we
March
have
is
about
January
four
18th.
weeks. We have about
Mhm.
4 weeks. So if you were to say, I could give 4 weeks of time, then minimum you could do 4 hats. And then,
Mhm.
but if you did one a night, you can have a lot more than that done. And
Absolutely.
that's what One Stitch One Voice is doing. We are collecting those hats and distributing them at the march. So
I'm so excited. I can't wait to start sharing the love on the packages when they arrive.
I
That's my
know,
favorite.
I know. We
Well,
love getting all those packages.
thank you so much for everybody who joined us this evening. We hope this helps you guys stay motivated in knitting hats for yourself, or if you want to teach somebody else how to knit a hat, this will be on Joy's YouTube channel. So if you're not subscribed to her YouTube channel, go ahead and subscribe, and then that way you'll also get notified when she has new videos out or new tips and tricks. Um, and we just really appreciate you being here and having all the time with us tonight. I appreciate it. And I hope everyone has this is our last Zoom before the holidays. So next week we have a lot of festivities. Happy Hanukkah, happy Merry Christmas, and happy Kwanzaa. I hope everyone has lots of time to spend with their family and their loved ones.
I hope our little hearts come up when we do that.
Who does it on Zoom?
I don't know.
Jennifer
Anyway,
got to work on it. She's got her heart going.
I
All right.
know.
Well, thank you so much.
Thank you all. And happy holidays.